All right, we are back at it with another discussion. Caren and I have decided to attempt to make these weekly discussions about various topics, subjects, news things, whatever we
Yeah.
feel like as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, or DE&I. Today, as hopefully you are aware, is the second day of Black History Month, 2023. And so so we thought that it might be a good idea to talk about Black folks in the workplace. And we're going to do things a little different. I think more often than not, we create and have conversations where we're trying to help other people understand how to support us, how to adjust their workplace. Today, we're taking a different approach. We're going to be talking about how to amplify your own voice if you are a Black person in a workplace where you are perhaps the only or one of few Black folks, and ways that you can speak up for yourselves. Because I think we've all been there at one point or another. And especially us having worked in the tech space for so long, Caren, I think we have had plenty of moments when we've had to say something, or even we hesitate. I hesitated. I've had moments when, before now it's a different story. But before I got to the point where I am at now, and before I got deep into the weeds with DEI, I was very hesitant to speak up for myself. And I have endless examples of when I felt othered, whether intentional or unintentional, whether the intent was good or bad, it happened, and the impact. And I think that's one thing that we should kind of keep top of mind as we talk through things today. And for any allies listening, there is a difference between intent and impact. So even because we often find ourselves saying, well, that's not what I meant. And we've all been there as it relates to whatever topic, right? Somebody says, oh, I was offended, or they regurgitate something you share with them and it's not what you meant. And you're like, well, that's not what I meant. At the end of the day, we can only control our intent. We can't control the impact, and vice versa. The person on the receiving end can only control the impact and not the intent. So yeah, with that said, I know we have a couple things we want to talk about. I think on our list was talking about appearances in the workplace, both in terms of what you wear, but also our hair, which is always a fun topic. Um, Also talking about intimidation and bullying. I was just sharing with Caren a story that someone close to me recently shared where they are being bullied by their manager. And the manager is attempting to intimidate them. And I think also another topic that we should cover are Black introverts and folks that are on the quieter end, because the stereotype of a Black folk or Black person, especially in the US, is sort of this large personality, someone very extroverted, someone very outspoken, the angry Black woman, the aggressive Black man. And so that is not always the case. We are still humans, and there are many of us who are introverts, ambiverts, and everything in between. And so I want to cover that. But let's
I,
start talking about appearances.
I also want to cover, when we talk about that, I also want to cover how being joyful is not necessarily being an extrovert.
Oh, let me add that to the list. Yes, 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 yes.
Because
I love
I just
hope.
had a moment. I had a very focus group of one moment there. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
we'll talk about that.
yeah. All right. So appearances, clothing, hair. I know you had an experience that we talked about briefly, but we didn't get into it. So
I well, I
tell us about it.
there's so many. There's so many. Because again, I come out of the tech space. I come out of the advertising space. A
Yeah.
space where you would think that like creatives, like that's a thing. But every time, because I used to have longer hair, and every time I would get
Hmm.
my hair braided, I literally had to reintroduce myself to a couple of people every single time. And it was different people every
Hmm.
time. Where it was like, oh
Hmm.
my gosh, hi, how are you? I'm like, I'm literally the person who was sitting at this desk yesterday. Like
Right.
I'm literally the same person. I just have
You
hair
just
now.
saw me. Hmm.
I,
Hmm.
I just,
So hard to navigate. I mean, there were so many instances. I can think all the way back to my childhood where I was constantly dealing with that. So, how'd you grow this overnight? Is it yours? How do you attach this? Can I pull it out? Can I touch it?
oh my
And
gosh.
as a
It's like
child, I didn't know how to navigate that.
exactly. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm just again
No,
the
no.
excitability factor.
Yes.
But like just the idea of the jump between can I touch it to can I pull it out? Like the jump is immediately to violence.
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
and that and like just you saying that definitely like brought back lots of childhood memories. And again, like that always that jump
Yeah.
of, oh my God, how did you do that? Can I touch it? Can I pull it out? It's like
Yeah. Yep.
why would you want to do that? That's weird.
Yeah. And I specifically remember one time when someone was, like, pulling on my braids, and I'm like, "That hurts." I'm like, "You realize that is attached to my scalp, which is part of me, a human, and I have nerve endings." And despite popular belief, black women more specifically, do not have a higher tolerance for pain. Baby, the pain be paining. Like, so, and, at that age, you're not really equipped to, you know, navigate things like that. And I wasn't. And I don't think, my mom, my family, they didn't know that they even needed to prepare me or educate me on that, because from, their childhood, they didn't experience things like that. They grew up in predominantly black areas and black neighborhoods, schools, etc. And so that wasn't really an issue for them until they got to the workforce. I, on the other hand, went to a school where I was one of few black kids, but then I came home and my neighborhood was predominantly all black. And so I was constantly in that space of, oh, I go to school and I'm too black. And then I go home and I'm an Oreo. So, constant battle, constant push and pull. And it's like, how do you find your voice? And I think, there are more resources and more education for kids now, but it's rough. It's rough. And you carry a lot of that going into adulthood, where now I'm just like, I'm ready. Like, as soon as I remember when I would get or do a new hairstyle, and I'm like, I would have to give myself like an Easter Ray pep talk in the mirror before I went in. Like, okay, because somebody's gonna say something, somebody gonna try to reach out, and you have to do one of those little. So, and it's like did I ever tell you the one time I went into the office and they stopped the meeting for my hair? Did we ever have this
No.
conversation? So this was like one of my last workplace experiences, which was certainly one of the reasons I was like, I have to start my own business. I cannot do this. So there was a team wide meeting, HR people, recruit everybody and their mama was in this meeting. And lo and behold, New York Transit was not on my side that day. So of course I'm coming in a few minutes late, and which is not my usual. I was usually like earlier on time. I hate being late to stuff. And so get there, and I guess the only conference room they could find was really small. So there were all these people like standing and they're like shoulder to shoulder, and I like squeeze into the door. And the person leading the meeting, who's also like my boss and everybody else's boss, literally stops talking. There's people on the call dialed in and everything. She stops talking. She's like, "Oh my God, I didn't even recognize you. Your hair." And I'm like, I was already late, so I felt like I was trying to combat the like CPT stereotype already. And I'm like, oh, here we go. They're looking at me like, here she is, a late black woman. And she literally reaches out and touches my hair and has a whole dialogue about my hair. And I was just like, what the fuck? I don't know if I can say that on YouTube Live, but I just did. Anyways, it was just it was just one of those moments where it's like, what do you do? How do you speak up for yourself? And I didn't want to, in that moment, I didn't feel comfortable saying anything. If I could have turned the color of a beet, I would have.
Yeah,
Really.
absolutely. Oh my God.
I
Oh
thought I
my
told
God.
you this story. Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yep.
Like
Yep.
way to like make you stand out and be like weird and then slightly ostracize you at the same time, and then like just what a weird power play. Oh,
Yeah, it was a very, very awkward moment, and you could see the faces on some other folks' face that was just like, "Oh, like, it was a cringe moment, um, and I don't think she meant any harm by it, honestly. However, this is intent versus impact, time and a place, and just also the fact that people are so comfortable physically touching you without permission, even with permission, but without permission more specifically, just never ceases to amaze me, because growing up, I feel like that was one of the fundamentals. Keep your hands to yourself. Keep your hands to
keep,
yourself.
keep your hands to yourself. Now, when I first went full bald,
Mhm.
I cannot tell you how many people, and it was more women than men, because I fully expected men to want to touch my head because I have a very
Mhm.
round, nice little peanut head.
It's
But
adorable.
I got a peanut head, and every time I try to grow my hair out, I'm like, I would no, I'm just shave it again. But
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of women who try to like sneak their way in, try to like sneak a little touch on the head, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
I, how dare you? How dare you? Well, I mean, your head is just like so rounded, so like I know. Why are you
Yeah.
touching me? I don't.
And I don't think people take into consideration how triggering it can be too. I mean, aside from it just being inappropriate for you to often express microaggressions through physical touch, we often don't it's like we forget that people go through trauma, and triggers can happen as easily. It seems like a simple thing. I touch somebody's shoulder, I touch someone's arm, right? As a kind
Right.
gesture, but you don't know what you're triggering for that person, what experiences they've had. And so it's important to be mindful. As they always say, consent is sexy, right? Like
Yes.
it's
Yes.
so important, right? I think it applies even in the workplace, especially in the workplace, because that we're, especially now as we start to see more people going back into the office, it may have been a while since you've been around some folks that are unlike you or different from you. So um, it's important to be mindful of that. But this conversation is more specifically about us as Black folks amplifying our voices. We
Yeah.
have to get to a point where we are okay speaking up. And that can be as simple as no. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times I myself have gone through where I'm overthinking, like, what should I say? What should I do? I'm practicing, I'm rehearsing, I'm writing down things. No. Like, can I touch your no?
No.
End of story. A firm norm. No. Or my favorite for 2023 is absolutely not. It's not, it's a little firmer than a no. I love it.
Yeah. And,
Um,
and to even add a little extra spice to it, absolutely the F not.
Even better.
Absolutely the no. No.
But no, but seriously, I think we really it's hard when you belong to a marginalized group, in particular Black folks, who we could go on and on about our history in this society. But it becomes hard to speak up for yourself. And
Yeah.
then it becomes even harder if you are interacting with people who are creating a hostile work environment, who
Yeah.
are constantly exposing or subjecting you to microaggressions, or just macroaggressions, because some things are more egregious and some people don't care. They just go
Right.
for it. Um, and so it becomes harder to speak up in those moments. But I think the more we do it, the more folks will understand and start to see, oh, they're not tolerant or okay. That person's not okay with this. Like, and
Absolutely. And
also, I was just gonna
I,
add, make sure you keep receipts.
yes. Yes. Always. And I think it's also important to um not coddle the experience. Like for example, if your answer is no, it's no. Yeah, you don't
Mhm.
have to be kind about your no. Like you don't have to be a jerk about it, but you
Right.
sure can set those boundaries and set
Mhm.
what is okay for you. We hear all the
Mhm.
time things like no is a complete sentence. I think that the tonality of no is also a complete sentence. There's a big
Yeah.
difference between, oh no, don't do that, and no, no,
Yep.
don't touch my hair
Absolutely.
or don't touch me. No.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I think part of that, of course, comes from us trying to again be worried about and combat stereotypes of I've experienced it again where I'm like, ooh, I should let me check my tone because I don't want them to think I'm the angry Black woman. I don't want them to think I'm agitated. I don't want them to think I'm antisocial. There
Yeah.
have been instances when I've shown up for work events and I'm like, I do not want to be here. I am tired, and not physically, I am mentally and emotionally tired,
Yeah.
and I just wanna go home. But at the same time, I'm like, "But if I don't go to the social event, does that decrease my chances of having visibility or gaining access to additional work opportunities?" And the answer, quite frankly, as someone who's working behind the scenes in DEI and recruiting for a long time, is yes. yes, people like FaceTime. They just do. And we can do a lot of things when it comes to remote work and trying to combat, hybrid. And we can preach to people over and over and over again to be accepting of introverts and different cultures and backgrounds and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's going to take a very, very long time to start to see a true shift in
Yes.
workplace culture.
Yes. And I mean, I think that that kind of goes to another thing about, especially being from marginalized communities, is that
Hmm.
just that entire self monologue you had, where it was like, I don't want to do this because I'm not comfortable, but I now am weighing out the 5 steps ahead, that if I
Yep.
don't do this, how is this going to impact my career? And we also know, I mean, not only is FaceTime important, as much as we would like to say otherwise,
Hmm.
the social track truly is the promotion track, which is why people who aren't that good at their job, but know how to work the people system of where they work, always
Yep.
get ahead. And I know as I say this, you're thinking of at least 3 different people.
Oh, yeah, you already see my eyes darting like, uh-huh, yep,
At
yep,
least
yep,
three. And every time I
yeah,
mention it, at least 3 to 5 people pop up. And again,
yep,
they're okay at best at their job. They're okay.
mhm,
But they sure know how to be at the events, be there, be like, hey, and again, you're not the party person, but
right,
you're the person who is fun and sociable. And
right,
I think that that also connects to, for Black people, that not only do we have to put on this cloak of being personable, we also have to
mhm,
perform a little bit too. And if you
good old
don't
suck
want
and
to
jive,
be right, and if you already
yeah,
are not in that space, you don't want to be there, but you know that an unwritten function of you getting ahead is you being there. Oh,
yeah,
it just becomes so difficult to do both. It becomes so difficult.
yeah, for sure. I'll give you another example that just came to mind. And I'm so curious who watches this. I hope people reach out to me about these random instances. But anyways, I don't have any ties to any of these workplaces anymore, so I don't give a ooh. But this one time we had an offsite. We had an offsite and they had someone come in and they were sort of like the MC and they were there to help us just do a couple like different entertainment things like games and I think like
Right.
karaoke and something like that. And they were like, "Oh, we're gonna have a dance off." And I cannot tell you how many people looked at me and the other 3 Black people that were there, and they thought for sure that we were gonna be like, "Okay, cool," and we were all like, "No."
Dance, 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 dance.
We all and we literally had a conversation after, and we were like, "They really thought we were about." You thought they really looked at us like, "Oh my gosh, are they gonna?" And even that one like nudged me, like, "Are you gonna go for it?" No, no, that's not my profession. Baby, I haven't taken a dance class since I was taking tap in like 4th grade, and you think I'm about to be first? That's the first thing, the human element. You think I am about to shuck and jive here, and then you add on this layer where it's like, yes, Black people by default are constantly looked at as the entertainment, and um, that's not my job. But it was just so telling of how many people looked at us, the 4 of us, like, are you gonna do it?
Yeah,
No.
and it just, and again, like, it is all perform for me. Perform for me. Like, and for me, I put it in that same category as terribly misusing AAVE, or trying to make some sort of musical connection or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
and again, just kind of like recentering us, the marginalized person. It's just exhausting having to walk that line of knowing what you're about to see,
Mhm.
knowing how you're going to have to work yourself around it, but to do so in a way that doesn't become so fragile that this person falls apart because you told them no.
Yeah. Yep.
You know,
Yeah,
and
I can think of so many instances. So many. So many. But yeah, we kinda went on a bit of a roller coaster there, but um Clothing too is another thing that you had mentioned before we got on today, where you had worn certain things to the workplace on more than one occasion, and people would not let it go.
Oh my God, that's so bright. That's so colorful. Oh wow. So just look at your outfit. Like you're always just so bright and colorful. What? I'm wearing I'm literally wearing an A-line skirt. So it is a Western style skirt. It is just an African print. And I've paired it with a jacket and a white t-shirt. Shut up. Just shut up. Shut up.
I had this conversation like towards the end of last year with I did a leadership workshop, and this person was like, it was one of the leaders, one of the participants, and they were like, well, how do I compliment someone and like not offend them? Like and at the time I had my fro out and they were like, I like your hair, for example. I should just not compliment you. And I'm like, no, but you don't have to go to the extreme to make me feel like I am some alien. That's the thing. Like, black people didn't just get here. We've been here. You may not have seen or interacted with us as much as you should have, but that's by your choice. But you don't need to, it doesn't need to be this whole production. Whenever you see me, you see my hair, you see me in my outfit. I'm not telling you not to compliment me. It's just compliment and move on. We don't need to have a whole like, oh my God, how did you
Like this is a good example for people to take a cue from Black women. When we compliment each other, we specifically say what we're complimenting. Okay, pink sweatsuit.
Okay, glasses. I see
Yes,
you.
right. I see that cut. Yes.
Okay, anyways, what are we talking about, right? And the
Take
conversation goes
that,
on.
take that cue from Black women. Take that cue from Black women, where you can
Yeah.
compliment the thing. You don't need to add any other emotion to it. You don't need to ascribe anything else to it. Compliment the thing and move along.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. And for those of you that are in a position where you are constantly dealing with people that are, how'd you do that? How'd you get your hair like that? Oh my gosh, I love this. Can you tell me more about it? It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. It's okay to, and I think, again, this goes back to amplifying your own voice and getting comfortable, right? Being willing to say how you feel. Hey, I feel like you're constantly calling me out. I appreciate the compliment, but it's too much. Like, what's wrong with saying that? And if you're not comfortable saying it, or if there are some shady things happening in your org, make sure that you either are recording the conversation. And when I say that, make sure you check in your local laws, because America,
Yep.
and consent policies and all that stuff. So make sure you check your local laws before you hit record. But you can either consider that, you could consider, having a conversation with a manager or leader in the room, having an HR person as a third party witness, having a friend or peer that you trust within your org as a witness. But speaking up is so key to us seeing change, because the more we remain silent, the more this behavior keeps perpetuating. And I know how hard it is to feel as though you have to keep speaking up. But if we
Yeah.
don't speak up, then what happens? Nothing happens. We just find ourselves getting deeper and deeper in this hole. We start resenting work. And that sucks, especially if the work you're doing is something you enjoy and it
Yes.
becomes tarnished due to external people. And that's not fair. It's not fair to you or future generations that are going to come in and attempt to do that work too. So
Yeah.
that's just my 2-cent rant on that.
It's true though. It's so true, and it's just I don't know. I've been thinking more and more about just like protection and boundaries, especially if you are a person from a marginalized community, of what
Right,
is okay and not okay for you to accept, and the fact that
right.
we have just as much of a right to say what is and isn't okay for us, just as much as anybody else.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the fact that we feel like we don't is distressing.
Mhm.
And the fact that we feel like we have to, pretty much have the matrix in the back of our head at all times because we have to think about what everybody else is doing. That's really
Right.
tiring. So what happens when you just resist a little bit
Right.
and you
Right.
and you just go, no, I'm not going to do that, or no,
Right.
you can't do this.
Right, right. I mean, I think one of the biggest problems is job security. So many people, so many of us are a paycheck away from being out on the streets. That's the reality of America. And there is, I mean, there's a huge gap as it relates to Black folks, Black employees, professionals across the board. There's a huge gap in terms of financial literacy, right? Myself
Yeah.
included. I've That's been one of my biggest things over the past few months is like, crap, I really don't know as much as I need to know in order to break some of this generational inequity that exists.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are fearful of speaking up because automatically you're like, what if I lose my job? I need my job. How am I going to pay my bills? What am I going to do? Like, I have family that relies on me. I have friends. I have children. I have whatever it may be, or it's just you, right? And you have to take care of you. And so there is a very real fear of that. And on top of that, again, if you're working already in a hostile work environment, how do you speak up in those situations? Um, Without the fear of retaliation or someone trying to get you fired. And again, this goes back to, if possible, recording everything, some screenshotting emails, Slack messages, keep track of it all so that you have that actual or digital paper trail, right?
Yeah.
Um, I was telling you earlier, I have someone close to me who's been dealing with just constant issues within their workplace. They are one of and this is within tech, no surprise at all. They're one of two Black people on their team. And those two are, I don't even know, there might be one other Black person in their office. They're located in the Bay Area. No surprise. So, right, I'm going to keep saying it. No surprise. So, they originally were having issues with their last manager who was being very abrasive, had lacked empathy, was very demeaning at times, and they had to go to HR. HR didn't even know what to do. Let's start there. Their internal HR team didn't even know how to navigate the situation and had to go and seek out an outside HR people consultant to come in and help this. So that's problem number one, right? That tells you a lot about this organization. And this is very common. This is not unique to them. This is a very common thing that happens, especially within the tech space, smaller tech startups, and orgs that are medium sized as well. They have HR teams to handle the basic things that traditionally have been part of HR responsibilities. But when it comes to navigating workplace harassment, discrimination, retaliation, intimidation, they have no clue where to even start. So,
No.
anyways, they brought an external person in. I guess they had some conversations with that manager. That manager ended up rolling off because I guess they were already in the process of recruiting someone else to take over. New person comes in. It was all fun and games at first. They finally switched, and the new person is now their manager, and it has not been any better. This person demanded that they start working on site after having worked remote for what, almost 2 years, if not longer, the next day. Literally messaged them or had a one-on-one and was like, tomorrow you all are required to be on site in, at the office every day. No regard for their lives, their responsibilities, the things they've set up. Um, doesn't make any sense. Even just
I,
humans. So it's like just these small little things. And then the next and they went to HR about this, and they were able to take a mental health leave, the person that I know, which I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And then now they were in the office yesterday, and the manager waited until everyone was away. First of all, the manager came in when the team was working, spoke to everyone except for my person, literally greeted everyone except for them, waited until the other team members left, and then went in and one on one was like standing in their face, yelling at them. That's where we are in 2023 with being Black in the workplace. And this person that is experiencing this is one of the kindest people you'll ever meet. very easygoing, a hard worker, goes above and beyond what is required, in part because they're often wanting to make sure that people aren't looking at them like, well, this person didn't do enough, right? Because that's always been the case for a lot of folks, Black folks working in professional settings. And so that happened, and that person is now taking another few days off of work for mental health, because it's like, you can't come yell in my face and think I'm going to accept it. And fortunately, they met their match, because this person, while quiet and kind and calm, you cross a line, it's like, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And so back to
I'm
HR. And again, HR doesn't know what to do. They said, well, what do you think we should do? What do you mean? What do I think you should do?
I, your job.
This person does not work even remotely in HR. Nothing related to it.
I
So
think
why?
you
How?
should.
Unreal, unreal. So
I'm so livid.
this is becoming a very real thing. It's sad. It's unfortunate. Um, and I just wanted to really quickly highlight that often I've encountered so many Black folks that are afraid to take a mental health leave, or to reach out to their therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, whoever, or even doctor, to write them a note to take time off. Take time off. Everybody
Yeah,
else is doing it. Take
yeah,
time off, because it's better that you take that time off and breathe and recenter yourself and figure out your next play, than to keep suffering in an environment that is slowly just bringing you down and exacerbating your mental health. And work aside, Earth is ghetto. There's enough to stress about. So please, please take time for yourselves. So yeah.
yeah. Very, very selfishly, again, focus group of one. I am terrible at that. I am terrible at that, and I did not take time off until my
Yep.
body literally shut itself down last April. Like my
Yep.
body control alt deleted and was like, no, thank you.
No, no, boo boo.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't even until then. And even then I was like, I have work to do. I can't get out of bed. I gotta do this.
Yeah.
That's awful. That's
Yeah.
awful. I mean, people
It
take
is a
sabbaticals.
terrible feeling.
I mean, people take sabbaticals just for the grins of taking it. They just want to go explore whatever, and they just go take a few months off or a few weeks or whatever. And here we
Yep.
are stressing about taking 2 days off somewhere, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I know you wanted to mention the joyful thing, but I really quickly, before we talk about that and wrap up here, one of my friends just texted me that it feels like Black History Month is disappearing, and that they're
Yeah.
on the fence of if that's a good or bad thing. Any thoughts?
Answer: yes, I do think it's disappearing. Do I think it's a good thing or a bad thing? I'm going to say the answer is both. I think it's a good thing because maybe that means we can start gatekeeping our own stuff. And maybe we'll start getting away from the performative kente cloth wearing, it's the Black history for me stuff. Maybe we can start getting away from that. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that that's a good thing, maybe, but I think it's a bad thing because we will lose recipes. Like
Yeah.
we will lose big chunks of the Black experience and the Black diasporic experience and the Black American experience. We will lose those things
Yep.
because we're not really uplifting it. So I don't know. I'm very conflicted, but I do definitely think, yeah, it's going away.
Yeah. Um, I'm right there with you. I'm pretty conflicted about it as well. I am glad that I, so far, knock on wood, because it's only day 2. I
Right?
haven't seen anybody posting that they are catering fried chicken and watermelon at their workplace.
Don't worry, they'll
I
save it for
haven't
Juneteenth.
seen
Continue.
right. I haven't seen and this is actually kind of a downside. I haven't really seen anybody having like Black History Month speakers. I had one of our DEI friends reached out and was like, "Hey, I had somebody reach out last minute to do a Black History Month chat. They don't want to connect with her until February 17th." And I was like, "What? They don't want to plan until the 17th? The month only has 28 days." But and I myself, I don't have any Black History Month talks this year.
Not a single
None.
one.
None on the calendar. And
Not a
I
single
think
one.
that is good and bad. I think it's good in the sense of if it's an organization that only does and acknowledges Black people once a year during this time or during Juneteenth, then that's problematic. But if
Right.
you are actively doing DEI, making efforts towards DEI, I think it's worth having something. And your celebration for Black History Month could be a facilitated discussion for your Black employees. I've done that before, and that's been amazing for the people there. They needed it. It was like a healing circle for them, right?
Yeah.
Um, it could be, not an event, but hey, we're tapping into this person for the month to do a quick assessment on the life cycle of Black employees in our space or our clients or whoever, and have somebody review all of our materials to see if we can make them more inclusive for this community, right?
Right.
So there are a variety of different ways. It's not just you have to have a talk, you have to bring out some kente cloth. Um, Bath and Body Works, they tried to flip it around this year, and I was like, okay, we see you, Bath and Body Works. So last year they did their little kente cloth candle prints, which was like, why? This
For
year, yeah, for why? For this year, I saw the email and they don't have those prints. They created I guess a variety of scents that are supposed to tap into or be connected to different parts of the Black diaspora. And they also highlighted one of their, I think, like, I don't know the formal title, but I think he's like a scent scientist or something like that, or
Mhm.
chemist or something like that. So I was like, okay, this is a step in the right direction, right? Where
Right.
it's not just we're trying to do this performative, cutesy African print candle, but we're actually highlighting and putting this person at the forefront before the product even. So, um, yeah, I think again, it's good and bad to your point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like that's yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
We'll see what happens in the future. Joyful, you wanted to touch on that before we wrap up.
Yes, yes. So, we talk, and I think we need to have a whole separate conversation about the Black introvert at work. I think that should be a separate conversation for us.
Let's make it next week. Let's make every episode this month about
Yes.
Black folks, because why not?
Why not? Why not?
Why not?
Um,
Why not?
I, the expectation for Black people is that they're always going to be kind of like loud and boisterous and,
Mm,
the entertainment. Um, However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're extroverts. And again, I'm looking at focus group of one. I am an incredibly joyful person. I am not an extroverted person. And
yeah,
so, what
yeah.
you read as my excitement about things and people constantly gets misconstrued as being an extrovert and
Hmm.
constantly gets misconstrued as, well, Caren entertainers or Caren, you go do the presentation or you go do this or you be out there in front. I
Hmm.
don't want to. I don't want to.
Yeah.
And the amount of energy that it takes, especially for Black folks, to come back down off of that, especially if they are not an extroverted person, that's a
Hmm.
lot of additional emotional and physical labor that we have to do just
Yes.
to just to be okay. Like you're asking us to be at a 15 when all we really want to be is
Mhm.
at a 4.
Right. Right. Um, yes. And it also makes me think about, we're definitely gonna have to do this as we'll talk about it next Thursday. But it makes me think about the impact that it has on us physically as well, right? There's so much stress that takes a toll on your body from constantly having to go through this roller coaster um of emotions, and your nervous system is affected. Your heart is affected. Black women are affected by heart disease at an extremely high rate. Other things that are related to stress, fibroids, super common, and endometriosis amongst Black women as well, which is becoming a topic of discussion. I've been seeing more discourse about it because it's like there's no reason that so many of us are suffering other
Yeah,
than we're stressed the heck out. We are
yeah,
stressed. And part of that is
absolutely.
directly tied to you constantly trying to have this internal battle with yourself about, when it comes to other people having this expectation from you, whether it's being an extrovert or your performance or whatever else. And you like just constantly being like, "Oh, I gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta," and then I gotta go home and recharge, and then I need self care, and then I gotta take care of this, and then oh, my body's retaliating against me, and then it shuts down, and when do I breathe, right? So
You can't.
very
You
real,
you
very
can't.
real. Yeah. Cool. Well, this was a great chat. I'm gonna repost it. You gotta repost it. Anything you want to call out, shout out, get people, direct people to that you got going on right now?
Managing and diversity as a product, what I will be doing within the next month. So before the middle of March, I am going to have a 30-minute webinar on just kind of introducing what those are and what we
Nice.
can do with those, and like ways of being an inclusive manager and ways of thinking about agile and bringing them into our DEI initiatives. I'll set those
Yes.
up. They will be $1 each because $1 shows that you actually care, so you're going to actually pay for it. So they'll be $1 each, and then I will also be offering some $10 15-minute pick my brain sessions from coming out of that, but you have to have registered for the webinar to get that, and I'm only offering a few of them. So that
Yeah.
will be up soon. So once that comes up, definitely pay attention to that. But that's really it. I'm just trying to work.
I hear that. I hear that. We'll be sure to include the links probably in the description for next week's chat if those are available, or the one after. Whenever they come out, we'll let y'all know.
Perfect.
Um, let's see. What do I have? I am finishing up my self-publishing book. I have not really shared many details about it, but I'm super excited. I finished the design of the cover. I finished writing, so now it's just designing the interior of it. Hoping to get it released in the next week or so in honor of Black History Month, and me just wanting to get people to do the work to support people like us and other historically marginalized, systemically impacted folks. Oh, and my Lenovo feature came out this week. So I was on Lenovo has a late night IT web series on YouTube. I'll add the link to the description, and they invited me to come have a conversation. It was amazing. Hashtag why is tech so white? And so it was a really, really good, candid, honest discussion. What you get here is what you got there, except I had my fro out. So
Yes.
yeah, really excited about that and hope people check it out and share it.
Absolutely. And I just want to let you know, just officially, I am so
Yeah.
proud and excited of all the work that you have been doing.
Aw,
Just I've
thanks.
been scoping it out, and I'm just like, I am just so proud that like you were out there, you're doing the thing, like you're actually promoting yourself. And again, out of the two of us, I love how like you were doing that work, and I'm just in the back like,
Yes. And I appreciate it. Honestly, I told you before we got on this call, I had a whole breakdown, a whole meltdown because I'm like, I just, it's too much. And it really is too much some days. I'm like, I don't know if I'm coming or going. Like, as a solo entrepreneur, you underestimate until you're actually in it, in the weeds of how much work everything takes. It is, when I tell you it's exhausting. And now that I've entered into this like content creation space, like consistently, record, edit, post. Oh crap, the app didn't work. It crashed. You got to repost it. Then I'm like, oh, but I still got clients over here. Got to manage the clients. Oh, but I need to go do this thing. Oh, I'm sick today. Oh, my dog's sick. Like,
right.
oh, it's wild. But I
It's a
know
lot.
that the journey is going to be worth it. And I'm excited for what's to come and appreciate you supporting me and keeping me sane because some days,
Yes.
mm,
Yeah.
y'all can have it. Get somebody else to do it. Oh, goodness. All right. Until next week around this time.
All
Thanks,
right.
y'all, for
Till
tuning
next week.
in.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. All right.
Oh, I was